Welcome everybody to Bar Talk. This is a spirits and beverage podcast on iLogic Media. My name is John Foley. I'm here with my co-host Mark Miller.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, representing the Relief and Resource Bar in Fenton, Michigan. And this is our first episode, our inaugural episode, and we're entitling it The State of Whiskey. So when we decided to launch the Bar podcast, we thought there wasn't any subject matter that we'd rather cover with our first episode than whiskey. And just instead of generally talking about how whiskey is made or like how to properly taste whiskey, I think what we want to do is just talk generally about where whiskey's at right now in 2021. It's obviously a worldwide important spirit. There's so much going on and there's so much to talk about that I think a state of whiskey conversation is probably worth having. If you're in the beverage industry, like every 6 months, you could talk about where whiskey's at, because everything moves so
constantly
quickly.
Changing, for sure.
Yeah. So like what the current culture is like, where the trends are, what's hot with whiskey cocktails, what do we see as beverage professionals, and what we'd like to pass on to people who like whiskey, like talking about it, want to hear what beverage professionals have to say about it, or maybe just so you can make fun of us for how horrible our takes are. To say some stupid hot take, and then you guys can shred us for it.
Yeah, and please feel free to leave all the comments too.
And like what categories under the whiskey umbrella, do we like? What are maybe being hyped right now that I'm not so hot about?
Right.
Because there's so much to talk about. It's an amazing time to be a whiskey fan.
Yeah, for sure.
Right
Absolutely,
now. So I've been doing this type of work for over 20 years. You're on your fifth year.
Fifth year here. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, this is the first bar I've ever really worked at where it was spirits centric, as opposed, because the other bars were just wine.
And you came from the beer world primarily.
Mainly beer. Yeah.
Which is where I started. I mean, I started in 2004 in Kalamazoo. Well, earlier than that, actually, in Kalamazoo. And Kalamazoo is a total beer and shot town. Like that was, if you didn't know your beer in Kalamazoo and you were bartending, you were kind of like probably working just at like a party bar or something. Yeah. So, I learned along the way too. But like, we want to discuss some trends. We want to discuss
for sure.
just the things that we like about it. Cause it's my favorite spirit.
For
sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's definitely the spirit that's most represented at the bar we own or work at.
I mean, if you had to guesstimate how many bottles of whiskey we have back there.
A true guesstimation?
Yeah.
Not a guess or an estimate.
Yes.
Well, doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, that's hard. Doing both guessing and estimating. I think probably 200. Over 200. We fluctuate around the 200 bottle level depending on what's out. Like over Christmas time, when allocated whiskeys come out and there's more specialty stuff, we balloon up.
Right.
And then, during summer when we're not adding as much product, we're just kind of working off our inventory. We have maybe 200 or sub 200, but it's right around that number.
Nice. Yeah.
And I mean, unless I build some library shelves, I'm probably not going to be able to carry too many more than that. That's
our back bar is pretty stocked at the moment.
Yeah. We were saving you, the viewer, the awkward visual of us standing behind the bar with nothing to do with our hands, because it just didn't set up right, and this is a better setup for the conversation. But you could have seen the bottles, but the rest of it would have been terrible. So let's get into it. Current trends in whiskey. What do we see as beverage professionals? What's cool? What isn't? What?
Well, I think
what's changed.
One of the big trends I think you're seeing a lot right now is additive flavors going into whiskey. One of the main popular ones is the screwball whiskey. So it's the peanut butter whiskey.
I didn't even have that on the show sheet. Flavored whiskey.
Yeah, so I think that's a big trend you see going on right now. Personally, not a big fan of it.
I think as long as there have been spirits, and especially since I came up as a bartender, inevitably things are going to get flavored. Inevitably there's going to be flavored everything. Flavored vodka was massive when I started coming up as a bar professional, and it hasn't really gone away.
Birthday cake vodka.
Yeah, remember the oak flavored vodka?
No.
Remember how there was a thing that they were going to do? I never even tried it. There was a thing they were going to do where it was still going to be vodka, but it was oak flavored, in case you wanted your vodka to sort of taste like whiskey.
Strange, but okay.
Yeah, which
it's
is
less calories,
That's clear Pepsi is what that is. It's a really, really bad idea, and I can't imagine it tasted good. But yeah, the flavored whiskey thing. I mean, admittedly, I tried Screwball when it first came out. A rep brought it to me, and he was like so sheepish when he brought it in. Like he like had it in his bag, and then he like pulled it out of the bag, like, you want to try this? And it was. I mean, I know that people like it. It's very, very easy to drink if you're really into sugary stuff, but that's a hard concept for me to get my head around.
Yeah, and I would personally die if I drank it. So.
Yeah,
The whole
you're
peanut
allergic to
allergy
peanuts.
thing,
Yeah, that
it
would
not
kill
be
you.
good.
That's an easy way to get out of a free shot.
Right, yeah.
No, I can't do it.
But I mean, you could say the same
Kill
thing
me.
about like, like same with like Fireball. Like there is a market for it.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're a whiskey professional, you know what Fireball has helped do for Buffalo Trace Sazerac. Like, I mean, that's a moneymaker for them, and it opens up a lot of opportunities. So there's a use for some of that stuff. It pays bills. It allows for other product to hit the market. But I think for the sake of this conversation, we're going to take those products out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because they become a secondary category.
Right.
It's flavored whiskey or whiskey-based liqueur because a lot of them aren't even foolproof.
No, yeah.
So that's not really going to be covered.
Right.
Probably ever in our show, like maybe ever. So there's that. That is definitely a trend, though.
Oh, for sure.
Although I don't think we really get asked for it.
Not so much here, no.
Because R&R is in Fenton. We're a craft cocktail bar, kind of the biggest craft cocktail bar in the area, and I think a lot of people come in kind of ready to do like whatever it is we're offering, which is really great. So we don't get asked for that stuff that much. I think the shots that are built out of it.
Yeah, mainly. But again, we're also not, kind of like we're not really a shot bar either. So it's like it's time and place, And I think eventually we will be talking about time and place, but that'll be a different episode.
I guess one thing is like if I always try to approach this often from a cocktail standpoint, especially if it's a product like that, like what's the use for it? What can I do with it that I want to give to my guests? And flavored spirits are difficult because oftentimes that kind of flavor manipulation is something that we'd rather have in our own hands. So if I can make a syrup, or if I can make a shrub, or if I can make a batch of bitters and do that, then it allows me to moderate how much of that flavor goes into the cocktail or into the whiskey.
Absolutely, yeah.
Instead of buying a pre-flavored spirit, which is, kind of get what you get, and then you have to work around that.
Yeah.
So I stay away from those just because when it comes to the recipes, I'd rather have
as far as cocktail making is concerned, it's a little bit more kind of like limiting as opposed to being like a better tool for cocktail making, for sure.
Right. Not that all flavored spirits are bad. Like
for sure. Yeah.
Looking at you, Pineapple Plantation.
Oh, yes.
So good.
One of the most beautiful flavored spirits I think I've ever had.
Yeah. We should have an episode where it's just 5 minutes of us drinking out of a pineapple.
Yes.
We'll do it in the summer.
Yes.
It'll give you plenty of time to shop for a Hawaiian shirt, although you already have some.
So yes.
It's good. So I mean, what else? What else is worth talking about?
I mean, I feel like you're also seeing a lot of different barrel aging techniques and different types of wood used in those barrels, and I think you're seeing a lot of prevalence in that recently.
Barrel finishing is everything right now. It's a lot of people.
Double oaked Woodford Reserves, one that
it's a huge one. Yeah, one of the first ones. I mean, so it seems like a new trend. Like it totally seems new.
Yeah.
Until you start looking at UK whiskey.
Right. Yeah.
And then I mean, they've been aging Scotch in sherry and other like fortified wine barrels forever.
Yeah.
You can't really talk about Macallan or Balvenie without
talking about barrel.
Without that, it's synonymous with what that tastes like.
Yep.
The breadth of it and the fact that it's crossed over the Atlantic into American whiskey, that's new.
Yeah.
And that's pretty interesting. Some of them are failed experiments, some of them are really good.
Yeah, I would say so.
Really good.
The Parker's Heritage we just got in, the toasted, extra toasted.
It's a heavy char.
Heavy char, yeah.
So that's manipulating the level of char on the barrel. Mm-hmm. And that's cool because it's like a hot whiskey.
Yeah.
It's hot because it's 120 proof. And also because they char the crap out of the barrel.
Char the barrel, yeah. Yeah, because I think when I did the research on it for the social media post I did, it was normally their barrels are level 3 char, the heavy char is
which is fairly
5.
Standard. Like level 3 is kind of the sweet spot, I think, for a lot of people.
Yep.
I didn't know that was level 5, but that explains a lot about what
it's rowdy, man. It's a rowdy whiskey.
If you can get it. It's the Parker's Heritage stuff is always really expensive, but that whiskey is 100% worth the
Absolutely.
money, unless you're getting gouged secondary, which we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah.
I also think that like one of the things that's fascinating to me, because when I came up, especially with UK whiskey, like age statements were massive. Like, is it a 12-year? Is it a 15-year? Is it an 18-year? Where's the sweet spot? I have to have it at this age.
Right.
Like that was really, really important.
Mhm.
And now that conversation is totally flipped, and age statements, I think, have never mattered less.
Well, I also think,
in terms of quality, at least.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah, absolutely. And I also think that kind of marketing, focusing mainly on your age statement, can be kind of misleading, because if you have a bottle of 12-year Macallan, there could be, that's only the youngest spirit that's in there.
Right.
There could be 18-year-old Macallan in there,
Sure.
it's.
Sure. And I think that, you're a slave to that flavor profile and that brand forever. Like Glenlivet 12 is going to taste like Glenlivet 12 always and forever.
Yeah.
And it's a really good whiskey, but some of the non-age statement stuff has been really, really, really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bruichladdich is part of that conversation. Ardbeg is part of that conversation. Glenfiddich has done some cool non-age statement whiskeys. The Fire and Cane was really, really, really good.
Yeah, that was a rowdy whiskey.
Yeah,
I like that one.
Yeah, and they kind of got to manipulate it in their own way and kind of make something really specific that had a lot of creativity to it.
Because that was the peated and then what, rum barrel aged? Is that right?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is just taking a cue from their kind of brothers under the William Grant portfolio, Balvenie, Caribbean Cask 14, which is an excellent product as well. Yeah. So non-age statement and blended Scotch. Like blended Scotch was always seen as less than when I came up, and now I mean there's producers of blended Scotch that are making whiskey every bit as good, if not better than some single malts. Yeah,
dude, I praise Monkey Shoulder all the time. Like
I hope Adil sees this, because we've already called out Here's Adil, William Grant.
Right.
We'll have you on the show sometimes. It'd be awesome. Monkey Shoulder is fantastic. Shackleton. Yep. And if you can take one thing from any of our whiskey conversations as you see these podcasts or listen to these podcasts, is the products from Compass Box. We're going to hype Compass Box again. You're going to hear them again. There will probably be a show dedicated to their products. But if you think blended Scotch is somehow a less than product and can't achieve the heights of great single malt, Compass Box will absolutely change your mind.
Change your mind. Yeah. Yep.
I couldn't love them any more than I do, and we'll probably touch on them millions.
We could probably do an entire episode about our love for Compass Box, honestly.
Yeah, I think so. Like just because of how many diverse products they're creating.
Yeah, for sure.
And how they almost have literally made a whiskey for everybody, unless you absolutely only drink bourbon.
Right.
They've got it's wild what they're doing. So with blended Scotch becoming, I think with better blended Scotch on the market, especially in the affordable range, I think Scotch is becoming more affordable and approachable.
Yes, for sure, absolutely, yeah.
And I did a little bit of a dive on the numbers, and Scotch still went up like 17% last year.
Nice.
Which is great. And blended Scotch was up more than that, and that's with tariffs. That's with it's with some
because those are bumped up.
A little
45, weren't they?
They were, but I think a lot of the companies just really stocked up. Yeah. So that the price the price increase didn't hit us as much.
Yeah, makes sense.
Like a lot of our product didn't go up. And, hopefully that that doesn't happen in the future, because Scotch is more accessible than ever, and I think needs to continue to be, because it can be a little less approachable than bourbon, because bourbon is inherently sweeter.
Right.
So it's easier to get into bourbon.
Well, I think it has this kind of like mystique around it. Scotch does, that it's only for like old guys in smoking jackets and really expensive bottles.
Yeah,
and it's definitely not that.
Yeah.
Because there's you can get a fantastic bottle of single malt or blended Scotch for under $40. So
yeah, under $40 or $50.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're really on a budget, that's still going to sound expensive. But if you see what people pay for bourbon on the secondary market, that's pennies on the dollar. Really, it's very, very affordable. And for great Scotch, that's still a really good price. But I mean, at the end of the day, the most affordable, great categories of whiskey are probably still bourbon and Irish.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you really want to spend, if you're on you've got champagne taste on a beer budget, that's kind of what you want to buy. And locals.
Yes.
Local distilleries.
Yep. A big thing, especially in our lovely mid state of Michigan.
Yeah.
You see, I see constantly distilleries popping up, every couple of years and doing really good stuff. Was it Traverse City has one up there? They do.
And Mammoth.
Mammoth, especially. Yep.
Yeah, I tasted some stuff recently from Mammoth over the holiday that a regular brought in, and it was really interesting. It was much better than the stuff from Mammoth I originally tasted.
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember as we kind of like put our opinions out there. Oftentimes I'm going to try to be as open as possible about telling you whether or not I dislike it because stylistically it's not my bag or because I think it's poorly made. Right. There's a lot of stuff from local distilleries over the past few years that I've tasted that I didn't really like because I thought it was too young or stylistically it was Michigan stuff.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
We could probably do a blind Michigan show.
That would be fun.
That would be a lot of fun. Yeah. We'd have to have one of our other people, maybe Courtney, who's going to join us on this podcast eventually. She would probably help us facilitate that. But Mammoth, Grand Traverse,
Valentine.
The Mayor Pingree stuff is getting a lot of love on the internet right now.
Yeah, I think they're based like a 9-year of Mayor Pingree.
Yeah, but I tasted some barrel proof stuff that was pretty cool.
Nice. Which
with the level of sweetness Pingree has, I think that
makes
the higher proof stuff makes more sense to me, to my palate, than the lower proof stuff.
It's kind of a good segue into the fact that we want to talk about that higher proof is not always necessarily better.
Yeah, higher proof is tough, guys.
Yeah.
I know you all love it. I get it. It's super strong. It's really sweet. It's easy to drink, even though it's super strong. But I think the trend that I see, and this is something I'm going to try to be nice about while also sort of hating, is that barrel proof whiskey is kind of like the new Imperial Stout Triple IPA and kind of like the new 15% Super Oaked Napa Cab. Yeah. Where it's so desired and so appreciated by so many people that it becomes almost a benchmark to where if the whiskey isn't like that, it's somehow bad or less than, which I could not disagree with.
Yeah, which is not true at all. Yeah. I mean, it's you can find perfectly beautiful, elegant whiskeys that sit around that, that 90, 94 proof.
That are under,
even under that have a lot more like robustness and, elegant flavors as opposed to something that's, 120 or 135 proof or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, barrel proof whiskey is very shiny and very big, and it blows your palate to pieces. Its flavors are so expansive and massive that it is 100% an impact maker, and it's what you remember because it tasted like the most. But I think elegance and sophistication are always going to be part of the whiskey game.
The conversation, absolutely, yeah. And you always get those guys that are like, they're the whiskey guy who only drinks, barrel proof and will never mess around with Buffalo Trace that sits at 90 proof because that's not for him. It's not, strong enough or whatever, but.
Yeah. Well, like sometimes you might want to have a dram at 3:00 and mow the lawn, and maybe 130 proof Stag is not the right choice.
Not the way to go.
You live your own life, but there's an I mean, if you want to taste and you want to taste more than, a couple products, and you're doing like half grams or half ounces, there's only so much barrel proof you can drink.
Yeah, you're only going to last so long.
Yeah, I stopped messing around with double IPAs for the most part because you have like 2 pints of beer and then I feel like it's
a lot heavy and full and
yeah. So I refuse to judge a whiskey on its proof unless the proof doesn't justify and work in harmony with the other elements in the whiskey.
Right.
For instance, very, very sweet bourbons I tend to like higher proof because it gives balance to the whiskey and it doesn't taste like candy.
Right. Yep. Yeah, if you got something sitting, that lower proof and it's just like super sweet, super barrel heavy, it can be very aggressive on the palate in not a fantastic way.
Right. But that's not to say high proof is bad. There's plenty of high proof whiskeys that I really, really like. And I happen to like my bourbons over 100 proof as a rule because corn is very sweet.
Right, yeah.
And I like my scotches
lower. Now, comparing something like rye to bourbon, rye, I prefer, 100, maybe like 110 is like the highest I like to go with rye because it's already so inherently spicy.
Yeah, because then it can blow your palate up.
Right, exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
Pikesville is a really good ceiling.
Yes, yep.
I think Pikesville is a great ceiling for proof and spiciness.
And it stands up, and Pikesville to me also has enough like sweetness to stand up to that.
Yeah, Heaven Hill's got rye down because they also make Rittenhouse, which is one of the best products for the money still, years and years in. And that's 100 proof bonded rye, which is really, really great. I'm sure most people listening to the show know what Rittenhouse is. But if you don't and you like making cocktails at home, just go grab it.
Yeah, it's under $30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
super fantastic.
You can bang it out in a juice-based shaken cocktail or a stirred one.
Yep. All day.
No problem.
Yep.
So yeah, barrel proof's interesting because it very much is the trend. And where there are plenty of barrel proof whiskeys that have great virtue and like are really, really, really good, barrel proof does not always equal great.
Right. Yep.
I think that's an important thing you just gotta like pump the brakes a little bit on barrel proof.
Again, back to that point you made about, the imperial stouts, the triple IPAs, that trend of like, 5 years ago or whatever, like it's because it has aggressive flavors does not always mean it's the best tasting product or or that it's more well made or anything like that. It's it's entirely subjective. So
yeah, so like think about it the way you would think of food. Like you taste a dessert and the first couple tastes are like amazing and it's just like, oh my gosh, there's so much flavor, it's so rich, it's so sweet, and then by the end of it you passed half of it off because you can't eat it.
Yeah, you don't eat dessert for every meal.
Right. Or like a sauce-based dish.
Yeah.
Where the first 2 bites of sauce, like, oh my God, you gotta try this. This is killer. And then all of a sudden you can't stop being overwhelmed by salt or how maybe the sauce is imbalanced or any number of things. So like there are things that taste great the first time you taste them. Or when you're first evaluating them, but then after a while, it doesn't become a whiskey I ever want to drink again. Right.
Yeah. Yep. So what, you want to move on to some troublesome trends that we found?
Well, barrel proof is awesome. It's sort of a troublesome trend because it excludes like 95% of the rest of the conversation.
Yeah.
And I think gives virtue to things based only on strength, which, if that were true, we could probably just steep Everclear in wood, and eventually that'd be great.
Actually, before we get into that though, we should talk about world whiskey.
Yeah.
Kind of sneaking into bars more and more.
That's a trend I'm down for.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a trend I'm totally down for because we've been evaluating whiskey for the longest time based on primarily stuff from Kentucky, Ireland, and Scotland.
Right.
And Japanese whiskey kind of starts the conversation because that's been hit for a while.
Yeah, for sure. The Japanese highball, I think, was definitely instrumental in
that's a big one,
popularizing it.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna apologize to our neighbors from the north. I'm trying to get behind Canadian stuff. I haven't had the whiskey that truly took it over the edge. I've had good ones, but I haven't had anything that's really that great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep giving it a shot.
Yeah, always keep an open mind about it. But I feel the same way. Like I haven't had a bottle that was like, this is definitively the most fantastic.
Did you ever drink any of that Northern Harvest Rye, the Crown Royal, after it won? It was like Jim Murray put it #1 in the whiskey Bible one year. Everybody flipped out because they were so appalled that a Crown Royal product had been given Whiskey of the Year from the Whiskey Bible, and because they didn't see that it was good enough to have won that title. And
those online whiskey tribes, I'm sure, were
they were
up in arms about it.
They were right about that one, but at the end, it's like, okay, drink what you like. It's your money. You
right?
Yeah. Your money on whatever you want.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, the best way to drink whiskey is the whiskey you like, however you like to drink it.
Yeah, to drink it out of a shoe if you want.
Right.
But the only reason my opinion matters is if you're listening to this podcast or sitting at my bar, and you can still tell me to go to hell or pick rocks afterwards if you want, but it's our podcast. We do get to say that Northern Harvest Rye from Crown Royal is pretty awful. It's bad. But again, what trends bother you? So I'm old and I've been doing this for a long time. So I'm full grumpy old man now.
Right.
So it all bothers me.
Well, I think it's one thing that I have noticed that I am not keen on is, say a couple comes in, they sit down, and the guy attempts to order a drink for his lady, and he says, well, she'll never like whiskey, whiskey's like a man's drink or whatever, or something like that. Like anytime I hear that just really irks me, because it's like, and then I think that also kind of unfortunately steeps into the woman's mind that, well, yeah, I only like to drink clear spirits. I could never give whiskey a chance. But, you make them something like, even just like a simple whiskey sour that they may have never had before can completely change their mind. So I think it's just, these preconceived notions.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, whiskey's got a boys club associated with it like anything else,
Absolutely,
you know.
yeah.
But there are more women who come in and drink Islay Scotch neat than there are men at our bar.
Absolutely, yeah. Which is an interesting trend, I think, for our
It
bar.
is, yeah, it really is. My wife prefers peated Scotch to other, you know, dark spirit styles, but I think that's a bad assumption. And if you're on a date, that's a poor move.
Yeah. The whole trying to order a drink for your girlfriend or significant other. Yeah.
Well, unless they tell you to.
Yeah, unless they tell you to, absolutely.
Yeah. I tend to order the wine because I worked in wine.
Yeah, sure.
For so long.
Yeah, absolutely.
That Anne's just like, okay, just pick me something good.
Yeah, but the guy,
don't spend too much.
The guy who sits down and says, "Oh, I'll give her a tequila shot." If she tells me no, she doesn't want a tequila shot. She's not getting a tequila shot. Yeah. So it's like,
I'm sorry, dude, but like.
Yeah, like chill out, man.
Yeah, that's a trend that extends across the beverage board, across that's just a bad bar trend.
Right. Yeah.
In general.
As far as whiskey trends go, you know, I think we all know the whiskey guy or the bourbon guy, you know, who is wearing has a jacket covered in whiskey pins and, you know, all that.
I haven't seen the pins in a long time. I've got some.
They are out there though.
My 1792 coat is really comfortable, and I'm going to keep it.
Fair enough.
But
it's like Flair at, what was it, Ruby Tuesdays or whatever that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do not have enough flair.
Shar used to wear flair when she worked here.
She did.
Yeah, we had a bartender who popped some pins, but yeah, she owned it. Yeah, I think like whiskey tribalism, I guess, to riff off what you said before, is it's a thing, man. Like ganging up and picking on people because they like lower proof or because they don't like, you know, stag, or they like a whiskey that you think is like maybe marginal. Like there are plenty of people out there who like great whiskey and can evaluate great whiskey who still have brands that are kind of cheap that they really, really like.
Sure.
And that's totally okay. Like a guy I talk to a lot who comes in here often is in a whiskey club member, Double B. Mm-hmm. He is, he knows as much about whiskey as anybody in this area, and he has a fantastic home bar, and dude likes Jack Daniels a lot. And that's totally fine. I told my rep that I would never carry Jack Daniels because I just straight up don't like it. But there's nothing wrong with liking it. And if, you know, you could post, there are these whiskey forums that you could post on of yourself having a Jack on the rocks, and people would just shred you.
Yeah, completely crap on you.
Yeah. And that's kind of a bummer. Like if you're just getting into whiskey, and I hope that some of the people here listening are getting into whiskey, don't let that
deter you.
Yeah, man. If you want to drink CC and lemonade, then go for it. You know, if the only reason to listen to us is maybe you wean something valuable and you get a couple brands that you like, or you just get a little bit of insight and you're a happier whiskey drinker because of it. But picking on people for their
that's not cool.
It's
not
rough,
cool.
You know, like, I can tell you what I think, and I mean I hate Jack Daniels, but that's, again, not because I think it's poorly made, because I don't like Tennessee as a style usually, and it's very sweet, and I can't use it in cocktails. Yeah. Like for anything. It kind of,
I mean, not to crap on it too much, but it just kind of falls flat in cocktails, you know?
Sure. And I mean, a lot of people take shots of it, and if I'm going to shoot a whiskey, I'd rather it be Irish.
Another troublesome trend that reminded me. Taking shots of whiskey, not a fan of it.
Not usually, no.
I think if personally for me, if I'm shooting anything, it'll be tequila. But I mean, you could have the same argument with tequila as you could, you know, whiskey, that, you know, it's generally better to be sipped upon and to appreciate the nuances of it. But people want to do shots, and it's a thing that does happen. But I don't see why you would want to shoot, you know, 100 proof whiskey or something like that.
That's maybe parental for me.
Yeah.
Because like, I've owned a bar, and like I just want you to enjoy your night. Just have a really, really good time.
Like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you really sure?
Yeah, like end of the night, I get it. Like there's occasions. Tailgates, you know, there's all sorts of reasons why you might want to do it. But
if you have a bottle of Malort laying around that you want to take shots of, you don't sip on Malort.
That you shoot. 100%.
If you're not familiar with Malort, Google it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like if you're gonna pay for it and you're in a nice spot, then then enjoy it. But I don't want to go too far into that because I feel like I'm gonna be a lecturing dad.
Yeah, we can move on
about it. And I already feel like I make you guys feel that way about me, so I'm gonna walk that back. So yeah, like also another thing with the social media trends for whiskey, and I think because bottle trading is inevitable, and posting that awesome bottle that you got is inevitable. I think that because the secondary market is big enough and is a huge influence on even what we do here, beware of price gouging. Please do. Like, there are lots of things that are price based on secondary that are far too expensive, and it's going to lead to a couple things. It's going to lead to price gouging continuing forevermore, and also a lot of buyer's remorse. A lot of, like, you know, you're going to end up bagging on really good whiskey because you paid 5 times what you should have for it. And the really only way to stop that is to stop supporting places that price gouge. Like, if you don't buy from them anymore, then their prices will go down to what they should be, and you won't have to deal with it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It can definitely affect your appreciation of the whiskey and the product if you pay 5 times the amount that you should for it, because then you're always going to have that in the back of your head. If you find, I think you'll nitpick it more going into it. You know,
there's no reason to pay $200 for a bottle of Glenmorangie.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Glenmorangie is great whiskey, but it's not a $200 bottle of whiskey.
Right. Yep.
And especially with bourbon, because for me, bourbon was always like, there's blue collar nature to bourbon.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so like ripping it up that much is
kind of ridiculous.
It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. It's and again, you see it, especially, you know, in these online forums where, you know, you got dudes trying to sell bottles of, you know, whatever, like Pappy, you know, 12 or 15 or whatever for you know, $1,000, $1,200, and it's like, why? I get that it's hard to find and hard to
get.
It's
a great Instagram trophy.
Yeah.
Then you can put it in your bourbon collection and, you know, not open it for 8 months.
Yeah. Bourbon is meant to be drank, guys. let's get that straight.
Yeah, like I think so. Like, I mean, saving something for a special occasion is great, but hoarding 97 bottles that you haven't even opened yet, it's like.
Again, if that's your thing and you want to do that, you go right ahead. But me personally, you know, I think that it's made to be drank. So.
I collected baseball cards too, but I eventually got stopped.
Comic books is what it was for me.
Yeah.
And now I just have a bunch of long boxes in my closet. I'm like, what am I going to do with these? Because they're now all worth, you know, 20 cents.
Yeah. So. Well, you give them to needy kids who want
to
read comics. I don't know what kind of comics you have, but I'm sure they're all
the good ones.
They're all Howard the Duck, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I had something, but I lost it. But like, again, with the price gouging and the pricing based on secondary, it extends to bar service too. So like,
absolutely,
there are plenty of bar owners or bar managers who also price their drams based on secondary, as if they're pricing based on what they could get if they auction the bottle. So you're going to end up paying, you know, $40 for a dram of, say, Elmer T. Lee, or, you know, $250 for 1 ounce of Van Winkle Lot B.
Right.
That's not good.
No,
and don't pay that. You're not going to enjoy it as much unless you just don't care and you have the money. And good on you if you do. And I hope that your life is awesome. And I'm glad that doesn't bother you. But I wouldn't do it, because then more bars will price that way.
Right. Yeah.
And
because then you make it the standard.
The culture. It affects the culture.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think. You know, not to talk us up too much, but here at R&R, we don't price gouge at all, really.
No, I mean, there's definitely a vanity tax that's put on some things, because, you know, they're hard to get. But I also want the product to sell, and I want as many people to try it as possible. So that, I think that's important.
But, you know, I get a bunch of like first timers in here. You know, if they're really, you know, into drinking whiskey, they tell me all the time that, like, is this really like your price for, like, you know, Hancock's Reserve or, you know, Parker's Heritage? I'm like, yeah. Like, wow, that's crazy. You know, because other bars will, you know, like, they'll charge triple.
We want to make money as much as anything else, but also, like, we want as many people to try it as possible. And I don't want 95% of the people who could buy it priced out of buying it.
Yeah.
You know, and then I have inventory that I can't move.
Right. Just sit on it for years.
Yeah,
and years and years.
I'm not a hotel in Dubai or a bar in New York City. This is Genesee County, and I want the product to sell. And, you know, I want the bar to turn over inventory. So, and I also, like, if you just got like a Christmas check, and you're, you know, a dude like us, you should be able to drink that too.
Right. Yeah. Treat yourself.
It's free. Yeah. Exactly. It's for you too, man. So you want to do cocktails real quick?
We're gonna cocktails.
I don't want to go too close to the hour mark, but
I mean, we're rocking and rolling here.
Yeah, we are. So cocktails, like whiskey and cocktails. What? I know you don't do a lot of stirred whiskey cocktails.
I don't really know.
Yeah.
Probably my number one whiskey cocktail, I would say, in general, would be the Vodka.
Yeah. That's a great one.
classic whiskey cocktail, rye, cognac, sweet vermouth, a little bit of orange liqueur, bitters as well. Benedictine, yes, I should say. But yeah, it's kind of
balanced, man.
Balanced, yeah. And this might be controversial. I'm not an old-fashioned guy. I personally do not really enjoy old-fashions, but I think the Vukare is.
I think it's fine to not enjoy old-fashioned. I mean, I do, but like with an old-fashioned, you're so close to whiskey on the rocks that I can see saying like, okay, well.
And at that point, I would just rather.
Why would I just drink it on its own?
Yeah. So that's kind of my opinion about it. As far as like, like shaken whiskey drinks, whiskey sours are always great.
Yeah.
There's one called the Prize Fighter that I've really been digging recently. Bourbon, lemon, honey, peach liqueur.
Yep.
Fantastic summer drink. How about you?
The Presbyterian is a fantastic.
Oh yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's a blended Scotch, ginger syrup, lemon, and club soda. It's rock and roll.
Super simple but super great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. There's an Irish one called the Tipperary, which I really like, which is a Manhattan riff with green chartreuse and green chartreuse and sweet vermouth.
Yeah.
I like that because Irish whiskey is really, really mellow. So it provides like a really smooth.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I always see you pull that one out. I'm like, I always forget about it. I'm like, you know what? That is a damn.
I like Irish whiskey in cocktails.
Yeah.
And I like Scotch in cocktails a lot. Now, the Penicillin is one that's really popular right now, which is great. It's a variant on a sour.
Penicillin, great intro for people into peated Scotch as well.
Because it's just a
that little float of peated Scotch on top. Yeah.
Though the New York sour is a really good one. And like pro tip, if you have a bottle of wine, like a red wine that you opened like 2 days ago and you have like a glass in it and maybe it's not tasting the way it should. If you make a New York sour, you just make, with bourbon, lemon, simple.
Yeah.
You shake it and you float red wine on top. And it's
I've done that so many times. Yeah.
Kill off like 4 ounces of, just a little bit. You make a couple of them, you can kill off that wine without dumping it.
And it's a party pleaser. It looks real cool when you float the red wine on top.
It does look cool. Yeah. So I mean, those are just ones that that I think are really great. We can't get too much into cocktails right now because we don't want it to go on for too long. But we'll have a demo. We'll do cocktail demos on these too.
Yeah.
We'll take you through some of the ones. A Manhattan one would be fun. I know a lot of you know how to make a Manhattan, but I'd like to get into
there's some
Manhattans.
Some riffs and some tweaks you can do to it.
Yeah, the Boulevardiers are great.
Yeah.
Those are just really cool variants on a Manhattan. Remember this, the more simple a cocktail structure is, 2 or 3 or 4 ingredients, the easier it is to make variants of that cocktail. So there's lots of different ways. You guys know that from being at home and putting maple syrup in your old fashions or vanilla syrup or walnut liqueur in a Manhattan. And the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
It's a really great way to.
As long as you have that base of kind of like a base recipe for the drink you're making, you can riff on it all day.
Yeah, just like a sauce.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna get I guess a little bit into just some last bits of information that we want to impart, but like how would you advise somebody to, if you only like bourbon, but you want to know more? I mean, Irish is very approachable, and we're going to touch on Irish in March because our 3rd episode is actually going to be called the rise and fall and rise again of Irish whiskey. So we're kind of leaving Irish off because we've got a show dedicated to it around St. Patrick's Day.
I think we're bringing Courtney in for that one.
Courtney's gonna.
Courtney will be here.
Courtney's essentially writing that episode, so
nice.
she's gonna be.
And she knows basically everything about it. So
yeah, she does. But like Scotch, like where's the entryway into Scotch for you?
Well, I think, for me, if I'm behind the bar and I get a guy who comes in, mainly bourbon drinker, who wants to kind of dip his toes into the Scotch pool, I think I would personally try to pick, bottles or brands that are a little bit more, heavy on the barrel aging. Maybe, like something like Glenfiddich 14 would be a great one. Yeah, that's always the obvious pull. Yeah. Something that has that nice barley character, but maybe is a little beefed up somehow. So you still get that bourbon kind of body to it.
And unpeated probably.
Unpeated for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because remember, peat equals smoke and earthiness.
Right.
That's kind of, for most people, the last flavor.
Yeah.
They get into.
You don't want to throw a bourbon drinker into an Ardbeg or something like that right out the gate, because they'll be like, I never want to taste Scotch again.
So remember, Scotch can taste more harsh even though it's not as proofed, because corn is sweet, barley is less so.
Right.
So even like a lower proof Scotch can taste more aggressive on somebody's palate
absolutely
away because it doesn't have the corn sweetness. So another one I like is Glenmorangie, Kinta Ruben or La Sansa. So then you've got like port or sherry barrel finish in a whiskey that's 86 proof and just mellow and very, very round and very, very pleasing.
Balvenie double wood too, I think would be a good one.
If you've got the coin for it,
Yeah,
Balvenie is
absolutely.
more expensive, but
Yeah.
it's really, really nice.
Yeah. So I think something, you know, like we said, like something that's has that nice body and character to it, but not really that peat smoke. Yeah, just kind of like be gentle with them when you're trying to get them into it.
Yeah.
Like, although I will say for me personally, with the first Scotch that I ever latched onto was Ardbeg 10. Like as soon as I tried that, I was like, I'm in. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I think people are either of like three categories, right? Like they're either always going to hate peated Scotch.
Sure. Yeah.
In a teeny tiny proportion, there's people who are always meant to love it.
Right.
Of which you and I are both.
Yeah.
Those people, or people who can gain the appreciation, can teach themselves to like it. That's a longer road.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it can be done.
And it takes time. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. But I don't think that there's any style of whiskey that once you like it inspires a more fervent appreciation.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Than peated Scotch.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Because once you know that peat's going to be there and you have that in your head, then you can kind of pick out the little like intricacies of,
right.
You know, the difference between like something like Caligula to Talisker or something like that, you know?
Yeah, something that tastes like, you know, earth and fruit versus something that tastes like brine.
Brine, yeah.
Or even like the big maltiness of a Lagavulin.
Yeah.
Which is it's a weightier Scotch in every way.
For sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess what are you sipping on there, buddy? We'll end with a share and then we'll.
Yeah. So I'm currently sipping on the Dead Rabbit right here. Fantastic little Irish whiskey. Honestly, you can probably speak to it more than I can because I know you are a gigantic fan.
I am. Yeah, it's associated with a legendary bar in New York, which someday I will get to go to. And if you're a fan of bar books, both like bar philosophy or cocktail recipes or just kind of stories behind bars, the Dead Rabbit cocktail book, Mixology and Mayhem, I believe is the subtitle, is 100% worth your money. It's a fantastic book. It's a great read. These guys are bar legends. The book is half graphic novel. Don't leave it lying around.
It's
for
a
your
very
kids
adult graphic novel. That is.
Don't leave it around for your kids to page through. But
it's awesome.
Great addition to your bar library. And these guys work with Dublin libraries. They have the biggest. So to backtrack, Dead Rabbit has the biggest selection of Irish whiskey in the country.
Oh, wow.
I believe it's the biggest one at this point. And they worked with Dublin libraries to make their own whiskey. So this is the house whiskey for the bar, Dead Rabbit.
And what, it's like 80 proof?
88 proof, and it's a 5-year product.
Yeah. And even though it is an Irish whiskey, and I think a lot of people generally think that Irish whiskey is just like really like mellow, gentle. This is kind of a rowdy boy right here. Yeah.
Yep, and it's priced to be in cocktails too, which is great because it kills it in cocktails.
Yeah.
If you can get it. But it's been better. We've been able to get it pretty regularly this year. We had trouble last year, but that was pandemic times.
And I mean, I pour it for people all the time.
Still pandemic times.
If they're fans of Jameson, I'm like, let me give you something. You know?
For a couple bucks more, it's a big upgrade.
Now you can talk about.
I didn't realize, but we both picked 5-year whiskeys.
Oh, you're right, we did.
So
well,
younger whiskeys are tasting better, and just because it's younger doesn't mean it's bad.
Right.
You can see that in micro distilleries. You can see that in Scotches or UK whiskeys that are experimenting with younger age statements, and stuff like New Riff. Is 5 years old. Right now their stock I think is 5 years old. But I'm really eager to try more of their stuff because the barrel picks that people do from New Riff get a lot of attention. The bottles are ridiculous and they got all the color.
Yeah, cool.
One of my favorites recently, and this is if you want to do peated Scotch and you don't want to spend an arm and a leg, this bad boy came out last year. This is the Ardbeg Wee Beastie. It's a 5-year single malt. It's peated like you can't believe, and it's earthy and raw and young and obnoxious and
hot.
I think it's absolutely fantastic. You'll probably get sick of hearing me mention Ardbeg in the podcast, but it's my favorite distillery. And
we're going to mention it a lot.
Yeah, if I could drink one distillery's whiskey for the rest of my life, it would be Ardbeg. And to have a 5-year product that is affordable, gives me all the peat that I want, that's the one. It's a really, really cool whiskey, and definitely is flying under the radar for a lot of people.
For sure.
In this country anyway, right now, or at least our part of the country. So that's our first show. We kind of went on a long one, but
we did it.
We can talk about whiskey for a long time, guys.
Yeah.
So thanks for.
We are two bartenders, you got to remember.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks for tuning in. Thank you to iLogic Media.
Yeah, absolutely. iLogic, shout out to you guys.
These guys have been awesome in helping us get this off the ground. So
yeah.
We say cheers to everybody, and
Cheers to you, sir.
Oh, thanks. And hit us up on our next episode 2, which is going to be entitled When in Rome. And it's basically about approaching and kind of going with the flow, just kind of using each bar for what it is.
Yeah.
And trying to find enjoyment no matter what the bar's specialty is.
Yeah. So look forward to that.
All right.
Yeah. Cheers.